A Moment of Significance, the podcast where we uncover the stories, the struggles, the strategies of extraordinary leaders who understand that true success is not just about what you achieve in life. It's also about the significance you create and the legacy you leave behind. I'm your host, Stein Rousseau, and I believe that when success meets significance, we don't just build business, we build lives that have lasting impact. Now, today's episode is going to be a little different than normal. Instead of interviewing an external guest, high-powered business person, leader in our community, I'm joined today by my business partner, Clint Myberg, a fellow executive coach and consultant. And together we've developed a series of diagnostic tools that uncover the real state of staff engagement, of culture and people health inside an organization. We've used these tools in large companies as well as during mergers and acquisitions to evaluate what we believe is the number one asset in any business, the people. We have businesses and we have hard assets, and we truly believe that the number one asset in every business is the people. Now, due diligence is typically looks at numbers, and it rarely looks at culture. And that's why so many mergers fall apart and they fail to deliver on their promise. So today, Clint and I am going to explore why culture due diligence is the missing link in mergers and acquisitions, how it affects retention and performance, and what companies can do differently. So welcome with me this morning, Clint, and we're going to have a nice chat about what we do, how we do it, and why we believe it's the right thing to do. So let's just start right away and jump into it. When we talk about people being the number one asset, a lot of leaders nod along, the heads move, but they don't always measure it. Why is culture engagement often overlooked in a traditional due diligence?
Hey, Stan, yeah. I think the reason is because it's invisible until it breaks, essentially. So financials are really tidy, aren't they? Financials are quite nicely measured, nice and easy to measure. But culture's quite messy. I think most DD teams measure what fits a spreadsheet. That's what we found, and not what runs the actual business. Leaders nod, like you said. I mean, we say it all the time. They like to nod that people are the number one asset. But they measure everything else except the asset. So there's no shared metric. There's a lot of time pressure, and a belief that that perks equal culture. But perks don't equal culture. We know that. That's just not true. So this is why we built a simple way to make the invisible visible, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's a crucial part of understanding, how much and what is the value of your number one asset, your people. In our work, we've seen what happens when culture is ignored. And I mean, this is what we do. We grow people and we help companies get their staff engaged. And we've literally seen what happens when culture is ignored. What are some of the real risks companies would face when they don't access cultural health and before or during a merger? So let's look at what does it mean if we don't assess the risk and we're not aware of what's happening in our business, and let's focus a bit on perhaps one of the number one challenges for big companies is retention of top talent. What would you say
Absolutely.
is the risks for having that hidden cost?
Absolutely. I think talent exodus is a big deal. Your best people don't wait for a comms plan. They're actually intelligent enough and predict. So they read the room and then they leave. That's what we've started seeing. And when it comes to an engagement collapse, people spend energy decoding politics. They spend a lot of time doing that, not serving customers. That's a big deal. And integration failure is another point that we need to look at. This makes me think of two operating systems, one laptop, nothing boots. Okay, so we're lacking choices there. I think loss of productivity and brand value is another big deal. Customers feel the wobble long before we see it in our profit and loss, long before. The decision latency goes up, simple approvals take longer, one-on-ones get cancelled, managers go into a firefighting mode, really, and we see shadow structures forming. Work happens in side chats, kind of to avoid the main process. I think we're avoiding the topic there, really getting out of the big stuff and working on the little ones. A little bit distracting. I think it's all preventable, if you see it early, isn't it, Stan? I mean, if we see it early enough, it's preventable.
I agree, and what I'm hearing is typically, most companies move into what I call siloed approaches, where we literally operate in silos the whole time. And I totally agree with you that it is all preventable on one condition, though. You have to see it early. If you don't see it, you can't do something about it. So seeing it early would absolutely be the number one thing to do. And this is literally why I believe diagnostic tools is a game changer. Literally, if you can become predictable in your business, and I think predictability and understanding what that number one asset of yours look like is really key to success, in my humble opinion. So I'd like to hear your view on, how do you think using diagnostic tools the way we do, how does that change the game?
Absolutely, nice one. We firstly measure the 6 signals, right, that leaders need before they make that decision to sign. Things that we measure are, for instance, role clarity. We measure decision speed, trust across teams, manager cadence, load versus your capacity, and change readiness, essentially. We combine short surveys and structured conversations and organizational signals. We're not spies, okay? So we don't actually look at the people necessarily. We actually look at the patterns of those people, and the output Absolutely. Is a heat map. Yeah, in plain English, we put it out there in English. What is healthy? What's fragile? What will it cost to fix? Examples, what do these tools actually measure? For instance, we measure alignment, we measure safety, we measure clarity, capacity, cadence, speed, things like that. How do we give leaders a clearer picture of what's really happening inside their business? We quantify them with an anecdote. You get early warnings and a ranked list of actions, and this is kind of what we're looking for.
This is exactly what we've seen recently when we did this for the Botswana Stock Exchange, and having that kind of engagement in staff is that you pick up what leaders don't normally pick up when we do these diagnostics. You get the real sentiment from the floor, and you can have an early detection as to whether people are going to go along with the journey or are they on their way out of the journeys, which is one of the things and indicators we saw. And here's the thing in mergers and acquisitions, that most companies that go into a merger and acquisition take a tremendous amount of effort to do a due diligence, and we check the hard assets, we check the money in the bank, I call it, the financial statements are getting checked properly. And what we left behind is the strength and the health of your number one asset, the staff. And what we see typically is, I think, great stat that you and I spoke about the other day, I think something like 70% of mergers and acquisitions fail. And they fail specifically for the reason that we never check the number one asset. We're not aware. And then after you have the transition, you have an exodus of people because they don't like the new guy that's coming in. They don't want to stay there anymore, and they go and find somewhere else to do. And at most of the time, so knowing, I believe, is better than not knowing. And to be in a position as a seller of a business to add a value to your number one asset, I think might push your PE up in your negotiation. And as a buyer, it gives you the confidence that the premium you are paying for this business, that number one asset, is going to stay in place. And I think that's one of the crazy great things about knowing. Knowing is better.
Knowing is better. Data gives you the map. Data gives you the map, right? Yeah. So I think data gives you the map, and but it doesn't drive the car. And I think that's where the coaching comes in. I really think that's where we align the coaching and the consulting. Data's not enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
So once you track it down with a diagnostic tool and the state, it's almost like the state of the nation, the state of your team, the state what that business culture looks like, and what's the health of that number one asset. I think once you know that, and you have a plan moving forward to make sure that there's smooth transition, not only will you retain what makes the business work, but you'll have a longevity in that business, and you don't have a mass exodus. So
Absolutely.
that's one of the things that we've seen when we start knowing what's happening instead of guessing, is that we can become predictable, and we can go, well, we're in a transition phase here, and we can literally craft a plan to make sure that that transition stays online and it stays on track, and it actually are successful in the process. So data gives us the map, and it doesn't drive the car.
Yeah.
And that's why we say coaching is an important part. It's that follow-up part. What makes our approach unique is that we're not just consultants handing over data. I think that's the one thing is why, at Stainless and Associates, what make us unique is we are not only consultants that hand over data, which is most probably what happens out in the marketplace most of the time. Consultant comes in, does an analysis, and gives you the data. We're also coaches. And why this combination is so powerful, it's helping companies not to just diagnose the problem, but actually fix it.
Absolutely. I think consulting gives leaders the what, doesn't it? And coaching builds the who that can deliver it. Leadership alignment that you can see in the calendar, the actual calendar. We like to land a 90-day people-first transition plan. Leaders agree the behaviors, not slogans. I mean, slogans are easy to talk about, but we actually agree behavior. We set a few non-negotiables, maybe a weekly one-on-one, a single prioritization ritual, maybe an escalation lane that actually works, one that's been tested. And, this results in a few visible habits that actually move through the organization. We protect the top 10% of talent.
I love it when you speak about visible habits, because as human beings, you and I both know, we are driven by habits. So, when we start talking, it really excites me when we start talking about, implementing visible habits. I get all excited.
We are the sum total of them, right? And what better way to know about your habits than to see them, other than those ones that are lurking underneath and happening in the background automatically, right? That we don't know about.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And isn't that why we protect the top 10% of the talent with personalized stay plans, small adjustments, big retentions, and retention as a product of clarity and care? What we're really talking about here is, and it's really emphasizing the importance of people-first transition plans. And I like to speak about people-first leadership and leadership alignment with a plan to retain and key talent, and with a plan to have smooth integration. It's almost as if we become super intentional upfront about what the real result is we're looking for at the end as part of a merger and acquisition, isn't it? It's literally that sets us up for thought experiments where we apply our minds and we have a plan up front with a clear path of what the outcome should look like. And that really, in my mind, is what predictability looks like. That's literally one of the reasons why I love diagnostic tools so much, is that we literally know what we're into, and we know where to adjust and what needs fixing. And it's not a blanket approach. Okay. So,
or a game of guessing. Absolutely.
Or a game of guessing. Absolutely so. So imagine two companies, just for a second there. One that does financial due diligence only, if I can put that as case study number one, and the other does financial and cultural due diligence, the type of thing that we do. Nice. And I want you to imagine a year after the merger. What do you think the difference would look like between company one and company two?
Oh, I think it would be quite vast. Let's think about first one. The first example you said was numbers only, right? So 6 months
numbers only. Typical traditional due diligence, numbers only.
That's the good old-fashioned stuff. So what happens after 6 months? They've lost their key managers. They've missed 2 quarters. Their customers have felt that gap, and decisions are slow. Good people are tired, really tired of picking up that slack. What happens with company B, the ones that do culture and numbers? Well, they clarified their roles in week 1, right up front, measurables, right? Then they run a single cadence by week 4, and they protect their top talent. What happens a year later? They've kept their customers, and they've hit their synergy without burning the people out. Double win, both sides. I'm definitely going to vote for option B, numbers and culture. Definitely. Same deal value on day one, a very different enterprise value on day 365.
Oh, I love that. Enterprise value. When you take the value of your number one asset into consideration, I simply love that. Same deal value day 1 and a very different enterprise value day 365. And that's really what it's about, is that every company that goes into a merger and acquisition literally have those two options. Stay with the traditional way of doing, or find a new way of checking culture and numbers and making sure that your investment have sustainability. And literally, I cannot agree more that it'll give you the same deal value in the beginning, day 1, but it will most certainly give you different enterprise value at day 365. And in my mind, that sort of also ensures growth after the fact. After that merger and acquisition, it ensures growth, which is quite important. So when speaking to leaders, and for leaders listening, whether you are scaling or whether you are preparing for an exit or considering a merger, I want you to ask yourself this: do you truly know the state of your culture? Or are you guessing? Do you know? Are you taking an estimated guess? How burnout is your people? And I often see this when we engage with leaders and we engage in these companies, and burnout keeps on popping up. Mental health keeps on popping up. Toxic leadership keeps on popping up. A disconnect between leadership and the rest of the staff keeps on popping up. And I really have found, even if you take the Gallup report into consideration, 70% of people in corporate is disengaged as a staff member. And I really feel that the reason for that being is there's this massive gap between the hard work I do at work and the reward for that hard work that doesn't lie at work, that lies away from work. And that gap people often don't see. And it's just adding to the things. I really want to impress on leadership and leaders listening to this podcast today. And whether you're in a phase of scaling your business, growing it, making it bigger, whether you are preparing for an exit, you're in a merger and acquisition, you're considering a merger and acquisition, it takes one question to ask yourself. Just one question. Do you truly know the state of your culture? Do you truly know the state of your number one asset in business, your people? A very clever man once said, if you grow the people will grow the business. And I think by now we can all agree that the number one asset we have in our businesses is the people. Do you know, or are you guessing? What are your thoughts on that, Clint?
Shucks, it's a big one. If the question is, do you know? I just want to know, how do you know? What have you chosen? So think about this. If you cannot measure it, you cannot lead it. It's not possible. So pick one tool, get one version of the truth, and act on that.
Absolutely. And I think this is just about leadership. Is one of the things that we do when we do leadership engagement, and I often say to leaders, is that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care for them. So guessing in your business what your cultural status looks like, guessing what your staff looks like, guessing the engagement level is not doing you any favors in business. Isn't it time that you have a look at what your business look like, get a proper understanding of what makes them tick, what makes the business tick over, a proper understanding of how strong is that number one asset in your business. And it really doesn't matter whether we are having this conversation because you're in a merger and acquisition, and we really specialize in doing these diagnostic examinations and coming up with plans in order to make sustainability sustainable. But it doesn't really matter whether you're running your business and scaling it and making it bigger, or you want to improve your business. Knowing will always be better than not knowing. And your staff will always be your number one asset. And I want you to picture this for a moment. You have built up with your blood, sweat, and tears over many, many years a fantastic business. And you put in place really rock solid standard operating procedures. You've documented them to a T. Everyone knows it. You got your ducks in a row. Everything is well documented. You have those SOPs. You have stunning products that you can sell, and you have systems in place that really work well. The number one asset is your people. I want you to imagine all of those things be in place, and the next morning, none of your staff rocks up. How much is those SOPs worth? How much are those systems worth? How much are the products worth? If the people that makes those things happen don't rock up, if your sales force is no longer there, your admin people are no longer there, your leadership is no longer there. And this is one of the reasons why we truly believe that the number one asset in business is the people. And the better you know and understand what's happening with your people, the better you can manage and control your business. That allows you to scale, it allows you to grow, it allows you to have great company culture. And I've seen many businesses over the last 30 years being involved in coaching and training and mentoring many, many businesses, some of them large Fortune 500 companies, some of them small companies. We have seen that it breaks down at the people, either from leadership to the staff to leadership, a combination of it. It breaks down in the people. Very, very often, you can find a problem in a disengagement level with the people. And that's what this literally is about today, is what can you do to know? And it's easy these days, literally easy. You know, simple conversations sometimes give us the insight, and we've really built some incredible digital tools that we sit down, we gather the data verbatim from the horse's mouth on your floor, and then we analyze that data and we come up with a report that'll tell you exactly what it looks like. And now you know. And then with that, the privilege to say, guys, here's a plan how to fix what needs to be fixed, how to adjust what needs to be adjusted, and how to maintain that's really working well. At the end of the day, the numbers will tell you what a company is worth today. That's how we calculate the value of a company. It lies in the numbers. The culture will tell you what it will be worth tomorrow. And I think that's a really, really important thing. Now, before we end this episode today, Clint, any final thoughts for companies, for owners of companies out there when it comes to cultural alignment, knowing and driving your number one asset?
Well, I think, Stan, you just reminded me of that other crazy stat that that people may or may not be aware of. But I think the number is something over the 80% mark, where employees would actually forego or forfeit a salary raise if their manager would be let go. So imagine that. People think that it's only money that keep people at the office. If we are not chasing, if we are not helping, if we are not facilitating our employees' dreams, then we're only looking at the money. And unfortunately, that doesn't count because the statistics are hard. They actually are in favor of people not necessarily only going after the cash. You know, they really, really will leave their job and not take a salary increase if they could have their manager removed, and that's a bit of a scary number for me. So again, it comes back to the fact of measurement. You know, do you know what your culture looks like? Do you understand what you're measuring? If you cannot measure it, you cannot lead it. So I still say, pick a tool, get the truth, and act on that.
I agree, and it's actually quite crazy. You look at the stats. You know, when we post-COVID, I think, again, Gallup came out of a stat when we were going into a phase worldwide called the Great Resignation. More people than ever resigned their jobs. And this is a crazy stat for you. Talking about stats is 75% of people who are resigning their jobs, when they were asked, what are the main reason? And we often as leaders think it's the money. And you pointed it out now, it's not the money. Here's that crazy stat for you. 75% of people who resigned their jobs post-COVID cited a lack of appreciation as the number one reason for resignation. Absolutely. And isn't that indicative of a time in life where we have forgotten the principles of people-focused leadership?
Yeah.
When people resign their jobs and they literally cite as the number one reason for doing so a lack of appreciation. Yeah. There's no engagement from leadership to the floor, and there's no appreciation there. And what we often do, and I found in business over 30 years, that we often use what I call the carrot and stick approach. The issue with the carrot and stick approach, however, is the stick is always too big and a carrot too small. And what people are looking for is not a bigger carrot. They're looking for appreciation. They want to know you care. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to know that you care. And often from a leadership perspective, we are too busy to care. We are too busy to watch the game, to walk the floor, to engage with people, to see how they are and to really mean and have an intention to understand how they really are. So how many of these top leaders literally take the time ever so often to go past every person on their floor and go, "Morning, Clint. How are you, buddy? How are things? How's things at your house? How's your work? How can I support you? How can I encourage you? What can I do to make sure that we are successful?"
Well, just imagine if you, most
of them that I end up working in, there's this tremendous disconnect between leadership and the rest of the team. There's this absolute carrot and stick approach. I'm paying you, here's what I found. I'm paying you a salary to do a job. You better do that job.
Yeah.
Is the sentiment that I've ran across large companies most often. Why must I come and check in on you? I'm paying you a salary. You must do your job. And we forget that people have an inherent need to be acknowledged. We go through life, our entire lives, and we're saying to the world, "Look at me, look at what I've achieved. Just see me, acknowledge me. I want to be seen. I want to be acknowledged." And then we think acknowledgement can happen once a year at a prize-giving function where we will reward and acknowledge the top 10% of people on their performance. And this is an interesting fact that I think Simon Sinek highlighted once, that, the way traditional business works, irrespective of what the guy did and how crooked he was to get to that top performance, he hit the numbers, he get rewarded. But the guy who rocks up every day and is steady and is solid, and he just misses his marker with like 1%, we'll never recognize that guy. So he rocks up every day. He's rock solid. He's trustworthy. He's all of the good things as business owners we want. But because he didn't really 110% hit the target, we forget to see him. And the guy who hit the target, irrespective of whether it was lying and cheating and doing whatever it takes to get to that target, we reward him. And when do we say thank you to people? Once a year. We have a fancy function and we say thank you. And I truly believe thank you should happen on a daily basis. Engagement should happen on a daily basis. And I truly believe, and this is something that I've learned from one of my mentors, Zig Ziglar, and his son Tom, is that literally people do not care how much you know. They do not care about the papers on your wall, the degrees and the things you have, until they know how much you care for them. So there's one thing I can share with leadership, apart from knowing what's happening on your floor and stop guessing. I would say that start caring for your people, start seeing them, and start showing them. People will learn more from you as a leader in what you do, in the example you set, than what they will ever learn from you for what you tell them. And I truly believe in that. They will learn more from you from how you rock up as a leader, how you engagement, how much you care, how authentic you are in your sentiments.
Absolutely.
So the more
Stan, that reminds me,
Yeah.
It just reminds me of when I was called in to do an intervention with some toxic leadership at a small firm, and interviewed the organization to get a feel with our diagnostic, got a good understanding. When I reported back to the board and said, statistically speaking, now that we actually have the facts and data, it turns out that more than 70%, so they were just one of the statistics, right, globally, more than 70% of your staff are actually rocking up at work, but they've checked out. They're zombies. They are here under duress. They are not here by choice, and they don't have dreams. They are here because they have to. Do you know what the bloody director said to me? Us too. We're also here because we have to. I was like, oh wow, I think I'm in the wrong room.
Look at the example you see your staff, right?
Look at the example. And then of course I asked, what are your dreams? And then I got a blank stare. So that's when I realized if your leadership doesn't know what their own dreams are, it probably means they don't know what their staff's dreams are. And if they don't know what their staff's dreams are, the guarantee is that they're not facilitating them. And if they're not facilitating their staff's dreams, what are they doing? They're giving them a paycheck. And that's unfortunately not.
That's absolutely so. That's absolutely so true. And I had a conversation and I think this with Tom Ziegler, who brought the zombie culture, he calls it, to my attention. And thinking about that, I've always believed that when people rock up zombies, it's because they don't have dreams. They don't see the reward they get for their hard work. It creates that gap. And what they tend to do is literally act like zombies. They are looking for the next person's mind to consume. And if we really think about the corporate world, what happens? It's when we gather around the coffee table to grab that cup of coffee and the gossip starts. Did you hear? It's one zombie looking for another person's mind to consume, in essence. And the gossip starts. Absolutely. And we get a poor culture. We get a total disengaged culture. And it's an easy fix. It's really an easy fix. If we start engaging people, we start really caring for who and what they are. We start encouraging them. Many years ago, I asked the question to Mr. Ziegler, and I said, what do you think, if you could give me one thing the world needs right now, what would you say it is? And I got the most profound answer I ever gotten from anyone. And the answer was, Stan, the world needs hope and encouragement. And I think it's part of the message today when we talk about diagnostic tools and really understanding culture in a business, is to understand from a leadership perspective that the world needs hope and encouragement. That includes you, it includes me, it includes everyone around us. Everyone needs hope and encouragement. So if we on a daily basis, leadership, give people hope, and we encourage them.
Yeah.
And we encourage them. What we get at the end of that is an absolutely insane, great culture.
I love that.
People that knows that you care for them, that knows that they are heard, that they are seen, and that they matter. Yes. I think the smallest of the small on this planet Earth, we want to know that we matter. No matter what the job is, whether you're the janitor or the CEO or someone in between, people want to know that they matter. And I think that's the message I want to give today. And we're going to wrap this episode up. And I want you to think about this. How will you be making sure that you know what's happening in your business other than tracking your numbers? And I have to agree, tracking the numbers is important. How are you tracking your staff? How are you understanding what that culture looks like? Are we just sticking to the copy and paste, cookie cutter, dated methodologies of scorecards? Or are we using new tools to track what it looks like? What does your engagement look like as a leader? What is the example you set as a leader? How much hope and encouragement are you giving? How much hope and encouragement are you giving on a daily basis? How much recognition are you giving? Are you catching them? Are you catching them in the opportune moment? Because here's the thing. You can walk into your staff every Friday in a staff meeting and, update them on what's happening in the business and then tell them, guys, you all know I love you all. In time, those things mean nothing. Are you catching them in the opportune moment? Are you, when you see them do something well and you walk up to them and say, you know what, I noticed you're doing this and I just want to tell you I'm proud of you. You really am doing a good job. And I found over the years that engaging someone in the opportune moment is thousands of times more powerful than generalizing things. We get two types of individuals out there. One I like to call walking generalities, the zombie culture. The others we like to call meaningful specifics. Are you running a business full of meaningful specifics with leadership that gives hope and encouragement? This is your host, Stijn Rousseau. And I truly believe that when success meets significance, we don't just build business. We'll build lives of lasting impact. Thank you for watching yet another episode of A Moment of Significance. Let's think about what we said today and let's see how we implement it in our businesses, what example we set, and how much hope and encouragement we can give in the next week. I'll see you next week, same place, same time, and let's talk about the stories, the struggles, the strategies, the extraordinary leaders who understand the true success is not just about what you achieve. It's about the significance you create and the legacy you leave behind. Have a super week.